This episode is brought to you by Manu Chao and their inspirational quote, ¿Qué voy a hacer? Je ne sais pas. ¿Qué voy a hacer? Je ne sais plus. ¿Qué voy a hacer? Je suis perdu. ¿Qué horas son mi corazón?
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, my people.
¿Cómo están, damas y caballeros? Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, where I welcome people with remarkable stories for amazingly vulnerable conversations. My name is Stephan Dyer, former banker turned comedian and lifestyle entrepreneur, and this episode with Daniel Gómez, the great Danny Gómez, was a great reminder of what's actually important. And you know what that is, my friends? You know what that is? You know what that is? You know what that is? We don't really need much to be happy. It was just, you're going to love his story. It's just, he's just so peaceful. I'm just I think I've never laughed as much in an episode, and Danny's not even a comedian. This is how good this episode was. Who is Daniel Gómez, you may be thinking? Daniel Gómez is an engineer turned backpacker and lifestyle entrepreneur. He likes to describe himself as an explorer of life, science communicator, amateur nature photographer, a consciously confused individual who was born in Cali, Colombia, and grew up in Bogotá until the age of 15 when he moved to Canada with his family. This is where it gets interesting. Listen to his bio. He studied engineering physics at Queen's University and has worked in the automotive, nuclear, and consulting industries for over 10 years. This guy's pretty smart. He was a manager of solutions at PRESTO. In other words, what is PRESTO? The Toronto Transit Payment Card. It's the card, the company and the card that you need to go into the subway. Before saying goodbye to the corporate lifestyle, to the 9-to-5 over 3 years ago. Having visited more than 50 countries scattered across 4 continents, and having spent more than 4 years of cumulative backpacking. 4 years of total backpacking. That's insane. That's like it's like 4 years. It's the period in between World Cups. That's how long it is. He has now turned living off a backpack almost into his permanent lifestyle. How cool is that? Danny is arguably the nicest, coolest, calmest person I know. I've known him for a decade, and I'm so happy to have him here. The guy is always relaxed and smiling, and you will see why. We all have to learn a little bit from him. Always, like we always say, if you like this episode, my friends, share it. Share the love. Spread the love. Give us a review. Screenshot it on your Instagram stories, and tag us at Stephan Dyer and at Dagomesco on Instagram. Oh, and also, this is pretty good. This is pretty amazing right now. You can now watch this episode on Spotify video podcasts. In other words, if you're on Spotify, you can watch the video as you're listening to the podcast, because Spotify now has video. So, my friends, you're in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen, and you can also see the amazing editing skills by the great Carlos Bolivar, my editor, great friend and great editor and photographer. He's actually done Carlos Bolivar has done everything in my life. He did my comedy special. He did the pictures for my civil wedding. He did the pictures for Liam's baptism, for Liam's baby shower. He did Juan Cajiao's comedy special too. He did He took the pictures when I proposed to Narzely back in 2017. Okay, I'm going on a tangent here. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a minimalist. He's an engineer. He's a backpacker. Enjoy this episode with Danny Gómez like I know you will. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast. I have here the unbreakable, the unmistakable, the highly capable Danny Gómez, engineer turned backpacker and lifestyle entrepreneur. a great friend for like a decade already. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Dude, this is long overdue. We've had. I think Danny's one of those people where, with Diego and Juan and Obama, probably like I've had the most philosophical conversations ever, and because Danny has been traveling for years now, we haven't been able to. And I've only had the podcast for just over a year. We haven't really been able to do this in person.
That's right.
We could have done it over Zoom, but from Villalba to here, sometimes it's not as good.
Signal,
Yeah,
the Wi-Fi keeps cutting in and out.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But, dude, really happy to have you here. One of the traditions of the podcast is telling people why I invited them. So, our friends will confirm, but Dani is probably the pioneer of quitting the corporate world, and then all like a bunch of us in the friends group, we all started quitting. So it was like Diego and Danny who started talking about it, and to me it was never really an option coming from Latin America, where you're from Colombia, I'm from Costa Rica, but back home in Latin America, it's not like as heard of for people to quit the multinational company where like your parents and grandparents are proud to do something that's meaningful to you. You don't quit your bank job to be a comedian in Latin America, you know?
You're meant to.
And in Colombia it's
similar,
it's similar. So you're one of those people that really sparked that interest and was like, well, this is actually kind of doable if you plan it.
Yeah.
And then you've been able to do it successfully without deriving your self-worth from external things, but more internal things. And for me, for Juan, for Diego as well, obviously, who's our great friend, and I think all of us, it's been a great example. Obviously, we kind of are examples for each other because we've all quit our jobs,
sure,
and have gone in different and similar routes. So I'm very happy because you've been one of those people who've significantly influenced my school of thought as to what is a successful life, one that is not necessarily connected to how much money you make.
Yeah, well, those are nice words. Thank you. I didn't see myself that way, and I do believe that we all sort of like look at each other and see the positive traits, and we want to pick those up and carry them on. But it's nice to know that like even actions that I thought I was taking, only impacting myself and not harming anybody else, just also have a repercussion, like a reverberation around. So it's nice. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you did that because I mean I always like to think that everything that we do matters, but it's so nice when people tell you, because sometimes you'll impact people and they won't tell you a shit, and then you never know if you've actually had an impact on people.
Yeah, the feedback. Yeah, that's something that when you go out of the corporate world and start on your own too, it's sometimes hard to get, right? Like, am I taking the right decision? It's not like you have a boss that's gonna make the last call, should I do this? Should I do that? Is it good enough for 6 months, a year? What am I gonna do now? There's lots of questions pop up, but in general, like, It was a thought that was being built over time, and we were talking about this earlier about how many people have this thought of maybe making a change, even if not forever, but temporary, and it's hard to make those changes, right? But looking back, often you never regret them. So you just have to plan it right, I think.
Definitely. I always tell Juan and my wife Narzely that one of the things I miss the most about the corporate world is that people would congratulate me. Like, you get feedback.
You get feedback,
and you get congratulated. You get promotions. You get raises.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, nothing but yourself
to pat your back.
yourself in the back.
Dear Daniel, congratulations on reaching your milestone of a year.
Yeah, and this is like crazy because that's why I think it's so important to have friends, have like-minded people that surround you. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy because you end up becoming the average of the five closest friends of the five closest people around you. So naturally, if you surround yourself with like-minded people, you will become the like-minded people. But what I'm trying to say is, to me, it's very important that my closest group of friends, for example, yourself, Diego, Obama, Juan, and others that are mutual friends, we kind of confirm that we're on the right track, because sometimes if you don't have anyone around you that's doing the same as you feel like a fucking loser just by yourself doing it, and then the voice in your head will be like, did I make the right decision? Did I make the right decision? Maybe I should just go back to the bank. Not that it's right or wrong to work at a bank or to quit to be a lifestyle entrepreneur, but having others around you that have done it, it's like, oh, okay, it's doable,
It definitely helps you go through the mental, roadblocks, not even roadblocks, but the recurring monsters, the voice in your head, and because it's so rare to a certain degree, not like out of the many people that work in the corporate world and everything like that do want to do it, very few people do it, right? So you find yourself surrounded by people telling your story. People are like, oh, that sounds so cool, but at the end of the day, no one else is doing it, or very few people are doing it. So I'm saying, am I the one that is
the outcast?
Am I the one that's doing something wrong without knowing it? There's doubts. There's always doubts, but I think for me, the peace of mind comes from just not. Like, I'm living a lifestyle that is very minimal, instead, like minimalistic.
I love that.
You take off weight in so many ways.
So good.
That it makes you less worried about a whole bunch of things because it's simple, it's not like you've built some emporium that will crumble if you're not there. Like, I'm super light and move around, like house as a service. Okay, I have to go. The pandemic got me in the middle of Colombia. Okay, sure, perfect. That's awesome. I have nowhere else to be. I don't have any responsibilities outside where I'm at. So that has really helped me. For me, kind of talk myself into saying, no, you're all right, dude. Like, don't worry. Look around you and you're doing okay.
Yeah, there's nothing like being able to worry about just what's happening in the moment. And that's a successful life. It's living in the present.
Yeah.
And when you're being stressed, by definition, is wanting to be in two different places at the same time. Well, you're more of a you know more about physics than I do, but in many ways, when you have too many things on your plate, you can't be here, you can't be there, you can't be in your mother's house, you can't be in your company, you can't be exercising. You like, it's so many things. If you think about it, we haven't really evolved as a species to be thinking about the past, present, future all the time. This is something, and the metaverse and Instagram and all these things where you have a different even identity than the one than the one right now. I have one. You could have one online. Yeah. It's exhausting, and we haven't really evolved. I mean, if humans have been around for thousands of years, like 2,000 years ago, you were literally in your home and you were no place else. No internet, no email, no fax, no phone.
Nah, the further your mind could go was the past with your memories and maybe the future with a little bit of planning. But life was so steady, so constant, so predictable to a certain extent that, people were not worried about not doing anything. You know that
the FOMO.
But it's like, you know, when you're just sitting still. Sometimes you're just having to wait in a line or something like that, and you're like, no phone. You cannot take your phone out. So all of a sudden you just have to be present. Like look at the neighbor, whatever, or you could just daydream or whatever. That's all they had. It's not like you had anything else to entertain. So that state of being present, surprisingly, it's very real for most species. If you look at cats, dogs, like that's for most of life, being present is the natural state. But we have filled our lives in modern culture with so many distractions, so many things to worry about. Physical, relationship, work, achievements, goals, FOMO, apps, that distract us all the time. And it's really, you really have to think. It's like, the now, you've read that book, the Power of Now? Yeah, so he drills on you for 3 hours of the Power of Now. But it's a good analogy. Like, you have nothing else but the now, really. And
the past and the present, and the past and the future only exists in the now.
In your mind. That's all.
There is no past or future. It only exists
in your mind.
In your present, in your mind.
And that's it, in your mind. It only exists in your mind. If you snap out of it, if you snap out of the past, playing again your mistakes, or if you snap out of constantly thinking of how good, there is research that shows that, properly having good thoughts about the future will motivate you and stuff, but everything's about balance, right? You cannot constantly live in the future, or how some people are doing it now in the metaverse. You know what? The funny thing is, I love technology and I am super interested in all that. But so much of my life has moved towards that, trying to be present, or enjoying the now and enjoying what's around, and trying to be free from all those distractions that I don't find it draws me. The metaverse and all these things, or being constantly in Facebook. It doesn't attract me, but it's an interesting.
It's fascinating. But from the balcony.
From the balcony, from the stands.
I wanna just summarize the first 20-25 years of your life, because I want to get to the decision of quitting your engineer life. So basically, as I said in the intro a little bit, you were born in Cali, Colombia. You grew up in Bogotá, and you came to Canada at age 15. You studied engineering physics at Queen's University, and then you worked in the automotive, nuclear, and consulting industry for over 10 years. You were a manager of solutions at PRESTO, the Toronto Transit Payment Card. So, for example, for context, for the people who are not in Canada or in Toronto, when you go into the subway, you have a card, a green card. In fact, if you're watching the video on Spotify now has video, or if you're watching the video on YouTube, you can see me.
You've got your Presto card? Nice.
I got my Presto card.
7 years working on that project.
Yeah, that is fully responsible for this bad boy. Here we are, Presto card, green.
Yeah, all the ins and outs of that system.
So then you worked on that before saying goodbye to the 9-to-5 lifestyle, the corporate life, that he over 3 years ago. So you quit
end of 2019.
End of 2019?
Yeah. So I gave my resignation actually over an email. I was in Italy because the company, long story short, they were going through some reorgs, and I had already advised my boss that what was going to happen. I was going to go on a year travel, but because of the reorg,
you told your boss you were going to go on a year?
No, I told my boss that I was going to go on some traveling, and
for a year.
Yeah, for a year.
Oh, and what did he say? And
actually, no. Now thinking back, I never told my boss that.
It was so present in your mind that you thought you did.
But I navigated it a little differently, though. I'm
in a Colombian way. I might potentially, maybe subtly hypothetically.
I'm going. No, but we said that they've transferred Alejandra and we were moving to Miami or something like that, and I wasn't sure. Like the honest answer is like I wasn't sure myself what I was doing. Like if someone asked me, it's like, so why are you doing this? I couldn't give them like a really reasonable, well thought out and verified answer. It's like, I'm gonna go set up a hostel in Colombia, dude. No, like I don't know. Maybe I was afraid of the story a little bit, but maybe. I navigated where like the reorg happened in such a way where I could just say, yeah, no, I'm not going back to my previous job because I was doing like a temporary manager role, and I'm not going back to my previous job, which is great for them because they were downsizing my team, and I was already told that you're staying. So if you don't leave, then someone else is going to lose their job. Like if you leave after, so it worked out.
Very cutthroat environment.
Yeah,
I mean it's a recurring theme where companies are downsizing, and you may or may not have your job. In fact, my job at Scotiabank, everybody knew that machines would be able to do this in 5 to 10 years. And I mean, obviously, I would go and do other things where, like, the person was needed, not a computer. But sometimes ignorance is bliss. Like, I didn't have a specific plan. I thought I was gonna live off of shows, and it's taken a crazy trajectory. But not knowing, like, having your life not be predictable is sometimes what keeps you present, Yeah. And to me, I always say that it was so exciting because for the first time in years, I wanted to wake up. I didn't have to wake up to go to work. I wanted to wake up. I wanted to wake up. It's crazy, but when you realize a lot of people, maybe half the world, on Sunday afternoons, they're like, oh, fuck, tomorrow's Monday. I never have that anymore. Never. Yeah. I mean, I do follow a kind of 9 to 5 schedule just because I have a son and a wife that works, but and I don't want to demonize the 9 to 5 because it's good for some people.
Yeah, it works. But, it's a very good lifestyle for many people. Yeah. But
what I want to really dig into is I know so many people that have told us, dude, how did you quit your job? I want to do the same, and then 2 years later, dude, I want to quit my job, and then you never know. In the blink of an eye, it could be 10 years, 15 years, and people never do it. It seems to me like one of the things that prevents people, because it did to me in many ways, was that I would fail in my next chapter. And I didn't want to take that risk because if I didn't quit the bank, then I didn't fail in the next chapter.
Yeah.
Because I would just be in this one where my family was proud. In Latin America, it's glamorized like, oh, the multinational.
And dude, the plan, it's like, people were like, so what's your plan? And I'm like,
the plan.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, that still is my answer for a lot of stuff. It's like, oh, so where are you going to be next year? I don't know. And it really throws people off to not know, We're so used to like planning everything out.
Being in the future.
Yeah, constantly. And not only just being in the future, but trying to control every little detail about this and that. Yeah, I mean, you have a steady life, you live here, you're gonna be here. But yeah, there's layoffs in companies. There's all these things that make it very, very much okay to say, I don't know, and when I don't know opens up, opportunities start showing up. It's not that opportunities start showing up. You just project opportunities are open. Say, hey, I'm open for business, Come on. You can go and visit friends, visit family, and not knowing is okay. That's where I'm getting at. I think not knowing is okay, but making sure that you can give yourself the time to not know is also very important.
So what did you do specifically? I know that you saved up, but I want to get to the logistics of it. For example, when I quit the bank, I knew 6 months in advance that I was going to quit. So I used that time to really downsize and live a minimalistic lifestyle. And this is such a great example because you realize you don't need much to live, but the more money you make, you kind of convince yourself that you can afford things, and then you start buying unnecessary shit. So when I made the decision that in September that I was gonna quit in March, April, my wife and I, who was then my girlfriend, we moved to a smaller place.
Mm-hmm.
We stopped using Uber. We stopped eating out. Stopped doing Uber Eats. Stopped drinking at bars because like a beer is like $8 or $9.
Yeah.
In the LCBO, it's like $2 or $3.
Yeah.
And all these little things. Stopped having cable. No cable, just Netflix. Like, I mean, it's $12 a month. Then all these little things, and then once you have less on your plate, it's like you're more relaxed in many ways.
Yeah.
And so people think that I woke up one day, I was like, fuck the bank, I quit. No, it wasn't like that. I planned it, which then gave me the peace of mind with my savings that I bought myself a year to see what happened.
Exactly.
Now, buying myself a year is a quote that I stole from you because you used to say it a lot. So what was your process?
My process was like, I've been lucky in a sense that I've naturally been good at savings. You know, like if to me the purchase is not justified, it's not happening.
Talent, man.
It's hard.
That's a blessing
for a lot of people. It's hard, but from since I was little, you know, I would get money from my grandparents and I just accumulate a few birthdays, and then I have money to buy something big, something that, you know, I'm not going by. I can't, like, maybe like, I don't know, I remember age 12, it's like buy my first TV and my PlayStation and all this stuff. And eventually when I came to Canada, and then all of a sudden you can work from age 15 and all your friends are working at the same age and you don't have any fixed expenses, you live with your parents, so all that's pocket money. But guess what, if it's not justified, then I'm not paying for it. And all of a sudden I find myself with a good enough chunk of savings, and then traveling came along. Like, I had always been, fortunately for me, in a traveling family. Like, my mother loves to travel. I was very lucky in that sense that they inculcated, like, okay, you know, this is a good expense to make.
An investment in many ways.
It's an investment. And when I was about 18, I decided to make my biggest, like, single ticket purchase, which, looking hindsight, like, we made it so cheap. It was like $3,000 all in to backpack South America for 3 months.
What?
Yeah. Back in 2007 or something like that.
Wow.
So this was like pre-internet. We had like a big book we called the Bible. It was one of those like Lonely Planet style guides. And again, no cell phone, just going into like a cafe internet on the bus terminals and like calling up the hotel. Hey, do you have room for 2 people? It's like, okay, yeah. It was a great experience.
Where did you go?
We started in Quito and went our way down Ecuador. We went to Guayaquil, to Cuenca, then crossed over to Peru. We had our first... we were robbed, sort of like the exchange. We got fake bills, a really bad exchange rate.
Wait. So you gave them Canadian dollars or US dollars?
US dollars.
And they gave you fake soles?
Yeah. Big bills of soles. And the first place, and I never forget, that crossing is called Huaquillas and Tumbes. Tumbes y Huaquillas, man.
Okay.
And in Colombia, tumbar is like to
steal.
Yeah. So we get to that border, like, we were just prey from the beginning, you know? You get off and get the passport stamp like 2 kilometers away from the crosstown, so all of a sudden the bus is not going to wait for you, so they leave. So then you're in the hands of the people that do these every day. No, not fate, of like trained professionals. Self-taught trained professionals. And then you get there, okay, you know, they offer you the taxi, we take you, and then once you get close, it's like, oh no, sorry, we cannot take you by car and all these stuff. So you're guided through these maze of confusion. It's like, oh, sorry, the exchange, we only accept soles here, so you have to exchange. Long story short, we got robbed and we went then to the surfing town of Mancora, and we were just like, okay, you know, we need a break. And we went to pay our drinks. It's like, this is a fake bill. And we tried to give it to all Peruvians, and they all spotted it until we got to Cusco and to pay the entrance to the church.
Yeah.
We slipped it in, and we never felt so happy. It's like, yeah, we got our money back.
How much money did you exchange?
I forgot. At the time it was like 300 soles that we had on fake money. You know, like 100 sol bills.
Like, how much was that? Like $100 back then? $80?
I can't recall, but it wasn't huge.
How
But
big were these bills? Like the size of a tablet?
Yeah. They felt like all of our savings had been stolen there.
I can't believe you didn't spot it. Like, how much bigger were they?
No, they were just not bigger. They were pretty good. Like they just like the locals knew, you know. I was like, oh, this is a fake bill. I'm not taking it. I was like, fuck. But we ended up we kept going down. We went to Bolivia, like in Peru. We did the Inca Trail. Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, we were talking with my mom the other day about
that. Crazy good. Lake Titicaca. We went to Bolivia. Did like the Death Road, you know, where you go down biking in these.
Yeah, I don't, but yeah, it's amazing.
And the Unisalt Lakes, Argentina.
Did you go to La Paz, Cochabamba, Santa Cruz? Where did you go?
La Paz. We went to Potosí, Oruro, and in Potosí there's a mine. It's like the biggest mine of silver. I don't know if it's the biggest mine in the world. I don't know for a fact, but it's a very big mine. The Spanish took all the silver, but it's a very hostile environment. And we went in.
Why is it hostile?
4,000 meters above sea level, really cold. They have these mine that they've been mining in very artisanally, like just open pit, not even open pit, just like an entrance, and each person that owns an entrance just digs into the mountain in their own way. And while we were touring the mine, they were dynamiting on another. Yeah, that was the first time I'm like, man, I'm gonna die. Like
with fake bills.
This town is like crazy. You can go to the corner store and you can buy dynamite, you can buy coca leaves, you can buy 96% alcohol, and you can buy like these really sweet drinks. And all those are the gifts that are acceptable to give to the miners as you go into the mine. And
no way.
And they use the dynamite, they chew the coca leaves, they drink the 96% alcohol, and they drink the sugar from the coke. And that's all. That's basically like a lifestyle, you know. And you can buy these at the corner store. Very interesting town.
Where did you go after Bolivia?
Argentina. We went to Mendoza. I did paragliding in Mendoza. We then crossed to Chile over the Andes. One of the most beautiful sights I've seen, like the snow peak Andes as you like run from, as you are going from like all the vineyards in Mendoza. Chile, and we went to the coast. So, what's the name? Anyway, it escapes me right now. And then down to Bariloche in Argentina again. Then Buenos Aires, we did a little bit of Uruguay, so Montevideo, Colonia, a little bit of south of Brazil, and then Iguazu Falls in Argentina and Brazil. And then we went to Asunción in Paraguay, back to Buenos Aires. So that whole thing, like 3 months.
3 months, $3,000.
Yeah.
That's insane. And how old were you? 18?
I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems like
18 or 19, yeah.
Those trips, I mean, it may sound very cheesy, but it opens your eyes that really there's more to life than your town.
Yeah.
Than where you grew up in.
Uh-huh.
Or like impressing people you don't even like from where you're at. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean, like, for me, my dad sent me when I was like 12, I think, in 2000, to spend 2.5 months to Europe.
Yeah.
To Paris at my stepmom's friend's place, and then to Barcelona at other people's another place. And another summer, I went for like 2 months to Stuttgart, to Germany, where my aunt lives and my cousins. And it was like another world for me, you know? And you realize, yeah, there's more to life than me and my own bubble, and becoming like popular or impressing people in my own town with things that I don't even value as much. So I think is that where like the travel bug was instilled, and you're like, this is kind of what I want to do for like more than I would be able to do it.
This sort of reassured to me that there was like a world to be explored, and I could do it by myself or with a friend. Like I had the resources to go explore this, and that it was a hell of an adventure. Like every little turn, every day was like excitement. Yeah, you make decisions. You're living in the present. Going back to there, traveling was, I found later as I reflected, it's often a way for, like, not if you're going to an all-inclusive resort and just like there, like being exposed to a new place, new language, new currency. You may be robbed or like you need to plan.
Given fake
You may be given fake bills. But all of those are things that make you kind of like rush with adrenaline, because
100%.
even if small, because you're in a new environment, you're on your own, you're navigating the world, but it is so empowering and invigorating, and you're like, wow, this was amazing. And over the course of those 3 months, I built so many memories that I still remember to this day. Like every little like spot had a story, an anecdote, and living they were just packed of great moments. And that sort of built the bug in me. It's like, put the bug in me. It's like, okay, I love this, and how can I get more of it? And as a backpacker, you realize that it's also cheap. 3 months, $3,000. We were going very cheap. Like my friend that I went with, he's lived in Colombia, and his parents were sponsoring most of it. And it's still something that, when you put it in pesos, it's still a lot of money, right? And like when you're like 18-year-old to do like an unnecessary trip, because this is all for pleasure. Like it's not like we can say, yeah, this is the curriculum, this is what we're learning. We're not even practicing English or anything like that. Even though when you travel, you end up meeting a lot of travelers and practicing a lot of English, but it was not a justifiable expense.
Who did you travel with on that 18? When you were 18?
Did you meet him, Juan Santiago Mendoza? Have you met Mendoza? I forget. Maybe
Santiago.
Juan Santiago Mendoza.
Was he? Did he live with you guys? No.
He came to visit, but no. Maybe in Goose and Klaus' wedding, he was there.
Maybe, yeah.
And you met, but no, he hasn't come to Canada recently that much. But he's a friend from school, from when we were like 5 years old.
From Bogotá.
From Bogotá, and we were very close up to the point where we came to Canada with my family. But I still talk to him. He came visit. I went back to Colombia, and the trip to South America got planned here in Canada while he was visiting. We were like, hey, we should do this, definitely, yeah. And the seed was planted, and really all it took was, okay, let's look for the tickets. Okay, now that they're bought, there's no return, right?
Yeah,
you sort of
that's the best.
That's the best.
I
right?
feel like one of the main reasons why we love travel, and Naval, one of my favorite podcasters, says this. It's because traveling gives you peace from mind. A lot of people say they want peace of mind, but what they really want is peace from the mind. Because when you're peace of mind is like having a peaceful mind, but you're still in it. Peace from the mind, you're not even in it. You're just so present that you're not even thinking, oh, I should have sent that email. Oh, I haven't talked to my cousin. Oh, blah 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 blah. Oh, I should work out. Oh, I feel fat. Oh, nobody liked my picture on Instagram. You're fully present, and it gives you perspective, because you're seeing people in different situations with things that you have and they don't, or vice versa, they do and you don't. So it's really good. Keeps you present. It's exciting.
One of the best investments you can do, definitely. And the more you go out of your comfort zone, and the more you explore places and situations where it's not all pre-planned and given to you as a package, where it's like a little bit of, okay, I need to make decisions. And these are not big decisions of like, oh, what am I going to study and all these things. They're small decisions, but once you're there, you're making them. You're not going back to anybody. It gives you that empowerment, and you just are bombarded with so many new things. I find, just looking out the window in a new city, I'm entranced.
Yeah.
I cannot stop looking out. There's so many things happening. The world is moving around you, and I just feel
Definitely.
like an spectator. Like I feel like an spectator in the theater of life, and that to me was like, wow, eye-opening. And the hostels usually have such good vibes. Everybody's young, traveling with like carefree attitude, so it's like a great trip, great way of spending your money.
It's kind of sad that sometimes now I feel that with Instagram, no hate on Instagram, it's not Instagram, it's how you use it, I know, but now a lot of people have lost the joy of traveling because when they're traveling, all they're worried about is taking the best pictures and the best stories and editing and this and posting, and then you're not even there because you're on Instagram while you're in Rome or whatever. And I've really tried to move away from that. I would try to like have the best stories and the best pictures. Now I just, like my friend Jose Piranian says, post and ghost. I'll post and then I'll leave. I won't
just record and then not worry about posting. There's a lot of places, for example, that I go to, there's no internet, so you just record as if you're talking to. You set the camera aside and then just give yourself time to enjoy the place that you just took a snap or a video of.
So good.
So going back, that was the first trip that planted the seed, and after that, I just couldn't get enough.
You went to university.
Yeah.
And then, where did you go to university?
Queens.
To Queens.
Yeah.
In Kingston?
In Kingston. Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. So, actually, you may have gone to university with one of my friends. Her name is Emily Hamel. You don't know her? You know her?
No.
Okay, well, anyways.
She studied engineering?
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
Big
But
school,
she went to,
but yeah.
like it's 100 people. No, but because we're the same age.
Yeah.
So basically, I met you in like 2012, 2013 when you used to live with Diego and Rodri in Adelaide. 69 Adelaide? 669?
669.
669 Adelaide.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like a lifeboat. Like, because a life raft. Because in many ways, I was so entrenched in the Canadian culture.
Yeah.
But I didn't have Latino friends because in university, when I went to U of T, there wasn't a lot of Latinos. No. It was like basically like me, Julian, and Alejandra Peñalosa. Did she go to U of T? Yeah, she went to U of T.
She went to U of T, yeah. She went to my school in Colombia too, so we knew each other from like Nogales in Colombia, and then Oakville, the same school, whole community. So we met through her. I think she brought you over at one time
100%.
At 669.
So basically, when I went to your place, and I got to see SWAT and the parties and you guys partying, I was like, this is my tribe, you know? And I just remember
good times.
Like being so drunk, like partying in your kitchen with you, Diego, Marce, Rodri, everybody back in the day, and Obama was there, Alejandra, Guille, I think, and Luisa were there, everybody, and like drunk, but in the kitchen, I remember vaguely, there was like a continent, like the shape of South America, with pictures of your travels.
Yeah, that was that trip to South America.
That was that trip? That was the 18-year-old? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, these guys know some shit I don't. You know, they party, but they're professional, and they still know. They're very true to their passions, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I needed at that time, because I just needed a group that reinforced that. Obviously, I wanted to have fun in my language with my people, but also it was okay to be different and to pursue your passions. And everybody was like, yeah, okay, you do comedy, you do parties, you do travel, you do this. Cool. Like, okay, let's support each other, and and it wasn't like, sometimes I feel like in Latin America, it's like, if you kind of deviate a little bit, it's like there's a lot of hate until you make it. And then it's like, oh no, I knew you from the beginning and everything. So, I mean, obviously,
it's a great house. It was a great group of friends, and we had a blast. I remember quite well that collage I made, and from pictures from that trip that I ended up just printing at one point because I wanted to have sort of like something physical from the trip. We had started a blog. It's out there actually.
What's the blog?
It's Gómez y Mendoza sa.blogspot.com. That's Gómez y Mendoza. Yeah, you'll find some gems there.
Let me try it right now. Gómez
y Mendoza sa con Z.
Con Z.
Ajá. Y después al final SA de Suramérica.
.blogspot.com. Ahí está. Mira, güey.
Yeah. It's in reverse chronological order, but it's there. It's all there. All the stories.
Reverse chronological order. Oh my God! Let me take the camera so that people can see it.
The last picture, we never finished it technically.
Look at Danny Gómez's blog.
To give you some context, I still have the sweater that I was wearing.
In reverse chronological order.
Oh, you'll find some gems there. You'll find the full story of how we got robbed in Peru.
We're gonna put this everywhere in the notes. Oh my God. Oh, you guys wrote a lot.
Yeah, there's like long posts. If you ever like just want some distraction.
Wow, Villa del Mar, Valparaíso.
Yeah, we put some effort into it. We would go to Cafe Internet because there was no we didn't have a cell phone with us. So this was like going to an internet cafe.
That's so good. It still exists.
It still exists, man. The internet never forgets.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is impressive.
So that trip, we had tons of pictures, and there were some really nice pictures. And the best pictures were actually from Bolivia and Peru and like high Andes, like these very beautiful. So I run the prints, the 50 top pictures, and I wanted them to be like nature, and I got them in my place, and I'm like, oh, how am I gonna arrange them? They were bigger than I thought, so I'm like, it would be really cool to make make it into the shape of South America. And then the next step was like, to match it into the country. That was a little bit ambitious, but
But the next step to print llamas, 3D printing.
Yeah. You look at it one way and he shows the tiger. And then, no, but I ended up working like for an hour. It wasn't that long to organize the pictures in such a way that it would look like the map of South America. So that was a cool feature. And because there were 50, 11 by 8, it was a very tall map of South America. Like it was, I made it the centerpiece of the kitchen as soon as I got to the house. And I'm glad that I made an impression.
I remember something about that house where Diego has said several times where like the first time that you guys moved in, like you guys had a shower schedule. Did you ask Diego like, hey Diego, hi, nice to meet you. What time do you shower? What time do you shower? What did he say, or what was the reasoning behind it?
The reasoning behind it was because I lived at Queens with 2 other people 3 years. Where we all had class, and it was just such like, all right, yeah, we have a window because everybody needs to shower, and if you all wake up like
shower at the same
5 minutes. And I shared a bathroom with Diego, and we're both hairy.
It took the longest time for his hair too, right?
Yeah. All these products. It's like what are all these? Like I thought he was the first roommate was Santiago Bueno. I thought he was his old girlfriend, and then I said, "Hey Santi, like are these yours?" And he's like, "No, those are Diego."
Oh my God! And then I remember that you guys moved to Hyde Park.
Yeah.
You had a jacuzzi. Man, that jacuzzi had so much hair in it. But Your hair, Diego's hair. Oh my god, man!
This is such a frat house. Honestly,
we would party there. You would go into the jacuzzi. You come out pregnant. Doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, because there was some crazy things in that jacuzzi. If we put COVID in that jacuzzi, it would die forever. I think that's the solution.
Too much
to the pandemic.
Yeah. No, that was a great place too. A lot of good parties in that jacuzzi.
Okay, so you visited more than 50 countries, 4 continents. This is the stat that I love the most. Spent more than 4 years of cumulative backpacking. This is amazing, and which has almost become one of a permanent lifestyle. And I want to. We always talk about the weakness of the strength or the shadow of our decisions, and I want to share with you because I feel like you may relate to this. Sometimes talking to old friends or bankers, it makes me feel like I'm missing out of my old life, or because I don't fit in with what they're doing now, and I feel excluded. I feel a bit of FOMO.
Yeah.
Or when I travel back to Latin America and I see my family talk highly of people in multinational companies and, he works at Scotiabank or he works at Nestle or...
the social clap that the title gives you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the status that the title gives you. Oh, no, he's a vice president or a director. And I'm like, fuck, that could have been me, And I want my parents to be proud of me, And not that they're not proud of me, but when I hear them talk highly of other people that I could have been, I'm like, fuck, that could have been me. And then I think of all the stress and that's attached to it and everything. And I remember what it's like, and I'm like just really grateful for my decisions and where I'm at right now, and the flexibility that this lifestyle grants me, and the little to no stress, and being able to be with my son and pick up my son and seeing him grow, especially in the context of the pandemic, being here. Does this ever happen to you when you go back to Latin America, or when you're surrounded with people in Bogotá, or that they do work and they're engineers maybe, and you are one, but you don't ya no ejerces,
Yeah.
Does that happen to you sometimes?
What does happen to me sometimes is that I get that inquisitive, people cannot put me in a category, it's like, what does this guy do, man? And that's sort of the recurring question, and I do find that you're right. Like in society, those titles, the combination of title and company, it's like a superpower. It's like manager at Accenture. Wow, this guy must be top dog, right? Like, the bigger and more known the company is, and the higher sounding the title sounds, which can be misleading sometimes. Yeah.
It's definitely not an indicator of happiness.
No.
And that's the hard thing, because a lot of people derive their conclusions based on what the paper says.
Yeah. And again, I don't hate towards that. Like I was very happy, very satisfied, very grateful with my situation. Same. I worked for it, and I loved it. Like I love my coworkers. My company gave me lots of like a good lifestyle. I did not leave anything behind that wasn't good in my mind. But to me, the question came back, and there were various moments where I would ask myself, it's like, okay, I have coworkers that would be all counting down the years and the days towards retirement, this mythical time of retirement, 65. And I was one of the youngest at my company. So, they're having this retirement talk, and I'm sitting there doing the math. 35 fucking years. That sounds like a long time. Do I want to be doing this for the next 35 years? And that question kept saying, okay. And then another question was if I had the salary, or I had the same salary, but I didn't have to come to work, what would I be doing?
Oh, so good.
And then
what was the answer?
Not this. The answer was not this. I don't know, but not this.
Yeah. And then you always mentioned something that really struck with me, was that you always use the term renting my time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does he mean with rent?
That was key for me.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Because here in Canada, we have two ways of measuring salary: by the hour or by the year. But usually, when you get to by the year, you end up working a lot of hours.
More than the 37.5 that the contract says, or 40.
Exactly, right? So I would do the math, and often enough, you would get a salary bump, let's say, of 20%, but you're technically working 40% more, then you're not getting a raise. You're actually going down, man. You know,
it's a downgrade.
I started working in Canada as an hourly wage person, and so you do the math, and the time you don't get back. You know, you are there. You are. Skill is also a multiplier, but we all put in the time. You know, I like that idea of measuring the time, because we all have these resources that we value very little until we have none of it left. But it's the most valuable, in my mind, it's the most valuable thing we have, right? What we decide to do with our time. So to me, that renting my time, it's like, you know, how much am I renting my time for, was a key factor, for example, for not pursuing careers or jobs that would pay me more, but would have me work a lot more. Like, would pay me more in a yearly salary basis, but will pay me less in a per hour basis. So that was very clear for me from the beginning and helped me kind of navigate decisions. So I ended up moving from Accenture, consulting, you know, high demand, lots of hours, to what was then our client, public sector, PRESTO, like around 3.5 years in. And that was seen as something that you wouldn't do. Like, the salary was a little better, but just, you know, core bureaucratic government, older people working there. It just, coming from Accenture, that was not well seen. But to me, it was like, man, my hours are respected. You know, I have good benefits. I am here for the time that they are asking me to be here. I give my all while I'm here, but I'm not asked to stay till midnight solving something that the next day is like, oh, sorry, we didn't need it that urgent. Fuck you. You know, everything is urgent until you hand it in, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen for a month.
Yes, so true.
So I definitely saw it as an upgrade, and I that mentality kind of stays true in my life. I mean, the combination of how much time you're investing and what return you're getting out of that time that you're investing, I think should be looked at, because people definitely burn themselves with 12, 14-hour work days or 60-hour work weeks, and they're not getting more out of life just because they're getting a fatter paycheck at the end.
And in many ways, sometimes getting a promotion is the worst news you could get. Because now you're spending less time with your kids, less time with your wife, and then the little free time that you have, you're more stressed. That we always talk about la carga cognitiva. How do you say carga cognitiva?
Cognitive load.
The cognitive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this phrase actually first heard from this friend that Juan Santiago Mendoza, who I went on the trip with, and I caught on to that term, and I think you did too when you heard it first, because
I was telling my mom, and she's like, I've never heard that, and I'm like, it exists.
Such a powerful term, because it really, to me, describes well that feeling of having too many things in your head. You know, having too many worries. Oh, I have to do this. You know, lists help, but if you have a lot of problems in your life, if you've built a life where there's lots of things that demand your attention, that's cognitive load. You know, you're gonna have to making decisions is cognitive load. You know, and making big tough decisions is cognitive load, and it's an art. Like, very experienced CEOs or people that make tough decisions can manage a lot of stuff, but it stresses you out. It stresses me out, man. I've lowered my cognitive load base to like.
I like that.
It's and my feedback internally, my bodily feedback is you're more relaxed when you have less things to worry about. Yeah,
and you're not. It's not like you have 11 lives or 25, and you're like, oh well, this life I'll take a bunch of stress. You know, next one I'll take it easy. You can't. You only have one. And I don't mean don't confuse this. Like, I don't mean like by, oh, you should quit and move to an island. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is the quality of your life is negatively impacted by taking unnecessary risks that may appear really good in the eye of society. For example, I don't know, like taking a very well-paying job that is not aligned to your core values. You don't even enjoy it, but because it's well regarded in your family or your society or your group of friends, then you do it. And then you open your eyes, you close your eyes and you open your eyes, and then 30 years went by.
Those 35 years.
You're I'm not saying it will happen, but it could happen where you're fat, you're stressed, therefore you may have heart attacks. You haven't traveled, even when you traveled, you were thinking about work. You have no fun. You don't do anything for fun. You don't see your kids as much. You missed a bunch of moments that you'll never get back.
And you find yourself in a place and a time where you may not be even have the energy or the desire to do all these things that you not only did not do, but probably fantasized of doing throughout those 35 years. So the sad part is not that some people do it, some people don't. The sad part is that a lot of people want to do it and a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And in these positions, you delay happiness.
Yeah.
In many ways.
And to me, the question was always, why am I doing this? You know, what is, like, again, it's like things have to be justified in my mind. At least that's how my mind works. So that was no different for a job. Like, why am I doing this? And yeah, of course, the paycheck is definitely an important factor. You know, career growth, the project that you work on, I think has to ring a bell in yours, in your being. And to me, it did, you know, public transit, I'm all about it. So again, it wasn't a bad situation, but back to that, if I didn't have to be here and I still got my salary, where would I be? And if the answer is not here, I don't have to have the replacement. You know, there's lots of options. So out of all those mix of you know, questions, emotions associated with the 9 to 5, that again wasn't bad, these ideas started developing for many years of, hey, I want to live like an easygoing lifestyle, closer to nature, more laid back, where the pleasures of life can be enjoyed to their full extent, you know? So I don't drink coffee anymore, but making sure that you can have your coffee or tea in the morning, relax, your breakfast. I love breakfast. It's priceless. The slow life is such good life. It was the life of the rich people. It's the life of the kings for the hundreds of years.
So good.
And all of a sudden we idolize, like, you know, productivity or something that makes you feel like you're doing something, when sitting down, enjoying a talk, having coffee,
freeing up time for what matters,
enjoying your meal. Like, we have access to kiwis from New Zealand, avocado, like everything. You have like access to the most amazing palette of flavors, and all of a sudden we just rush to fucking shove it down our mouths. And that to me didn't make sense, you know. If I'm paying, even if it's a $15 meal or $10 meal that you make with fresh ingredients, why does it not that deserve the merit of just sitting down and enjoying it? And that started to put in a lot of ideas in my mind, where I would fantasize being in a hostel in this lifestyle of traveling that I kept going back to when I was traveling in all my backpacking trips. And that to me was just like, oh, that sounds like the life, you know, partying with friends, all the good things that you can imagine. And I had like mini attempts at saying, okay, you know, I'm tired of this. When I moved from Accenture to PRESTO, which I was laid off from Accenture, like out of nowhere. I didn't even, I was employed. They do some crazy stuff at Accenture where they rank you, and I didn't do the corporate Accenture thing well. Like, I wasn't online at 10 a.m. to make sure my boss saw that, I didn't send an email at 12 just to make sure that they thought that I was working at midnight, right? I just did my stuff well. And I guess at one point I wasn't the favorite of my manager, who was supposed to rate me, and then my career counselor didn't represent me in the call. 1 year I just got an awful rating. And they rank everybody from 1 to 100. If there's 100 analysts, you have to be either 1 or 100, somewhere in between.
Yeah, there's a ranking.
And that determines, to some HR person that gets the signal, hey, we have to lay off people because next year we don't have that many projects. So they pick the bottom of the pile, and then they give you a layoff. So I was laid off from Accenture without even knowing what I did wrong. I get an invite to a meeting with my career counselor in the Accenture office, which was strange because you usually work at the client's office. But I didn't think too much of it. Get there at 10 a.m. on a Friday. So we're gonna let you go. And I'm like, wow, that's a shock. But
and we're gonna pay your last salary in fake Peruvian soles.
No, you know what? It was one of those the silver lining. It's like, okay, now I get 3 months of salary, and they helped me make a tough decision that I was already thinking of doing, but then I didn't have an alternative. I had my lifestyle all set up. I lived in downtown Toronto in an apartment. I paid rent. So it wasn't as easy as hey, dropping it, I'm going to go set up a hostel. And the first thing I fantasize about this in my cubicle, and it's where, how, when, all these questions, because I'm also an engineer, so I'm a solver, when it's the worst for people that propose things to me, say, oh, we should do this. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of work. The engineer part right away tries the solution, and I didn't have anything planned out. So I'm at home. I tried to do this project with some friends where we're doing a solar panel cleaning robot, and so I'm working in this thing, and we get to a point where we're going to do a trial with a company, and none of my partners was willing to take the next. Already the thing required for us to go full in. It's you go full in, and no one wanted it, and then Presto, our ex-client, a manager that I had worked closely with at Presto, messaged me. It's hey, we have this position open. So it was such a mixed bag of feelings. It's oh, I don't want to go back. Coming from Accenture, it was seen as a downgrade. You're going to a client, you're not growing, you're not a consultant. So I had to fight with my ego, but it was a great offer that was being basically given at me. I still had to interview on all this stuff, but basically they looked into it. They couldn't figure out. They weren't given a good reason why I was laid off, and I was actually key to the project. I had been there for 3.5 years. I knew a lot of stuff just from having been there for 3.5 years. So the client was very happy to get me over there, and so I started working at Presto. So it was. It was a realization for me to say, it's what is it that I'm doing this for? And right now, the project is great, but it's mostly a salary and a lifestyle. And dreaming of a different lifestyle didn't even happen when I was, moving to a different lifestyle didn't even happen when I was given 3 months of salary and all this stuff, because I had already all my life set up. Disassembling that took a while, took planning, took premeditation. But it was in the working. Every time I changed jobs, I would go travel. There's one story where I'm going from one job to the other. Actually, from my job previous to Accenture. Previous to Accenture. Okay. I used to work at an automotive industry supplier, making transmission line tubes. Oh man, going into the factory was one of those reminders of the industrialized world, because it was just machines of full of pneumatic pistons going all day, and it was just that pace of the machine just pumping all day. Anyway, I moved from that job and I had gotten a nice new job at consulting, new world traveling. I was really excited.
Parents are proud.
In Toronto. So I'm moving to Toronto because this job was in Kitchener and like very far away, middle of nowhere. So I was really excited for this job. And a good friend of mine was Rodrigo, who I lived with, and he's also a friend from my school in Colombia. So we have a long line, and we had traveled before. He kept saying to me, hey, I want to go to Asia. I want to go to Asia. Come with me. I had already been to Asia with my mom for 3 months. And I really wanted to go. But, you know, as it so happens, when you have a job, you may have the money, but you don't have the time.
Yeah.
And it just happened that it aligned with this new job that I got. And he said, Rod, yeah, you go for 3 months. I'll join you for 2 weeks. And then he had his plans for the rest of the 3 months. But I had my 2 weeks in Asia.
Yeah.
So we went to Asia. We landed in Bangkok, took a train to Chiang Mai, and I remember quite clearly, this was around September, because the day of my birthday, I wake up, I look at my email, and I get an email from Accenture. Hey, listen, we have to talk. When can I call you? I'm in the middle of Thailand. I'm like, hey, when can I call you? So going to a restaurant, get some free Wi-Fi, and Skyped the HR lady at Accenture back, and I was supposed to start in November 15. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, because, you know, staffing, this, that, you're going to have to start in January. Imagine these news to someone that is relying on that job, may have already quit. This is devastating, right? It's like, man, what am I going to do for 2 months? So she was like, really like suffering giving out these news. I'm like, oh, no worries. Don't worry about it. Just let me know when. January 15th? Perfect. No worries. Hang up. The next call is to the airline. Change the ticket. I ended up spending the 3 months in Asia again. So you know, every time I had a chance to travel instead of work, looking back, I did it. And this was, I think, just the continuation. This was the step where I said, okay, now my gift to me is not a trip, is a year. I don't have to have a plan. I don't have to have a plan. I'm just buying myself 1 year of my life. Back to that question. If I was given the money from my job, but I didn't have to go to my job, what would I do? So as a frugal person by nature, I didn't spend that much. I had already lots of savings.
Did you save like 10% of everything, or 20%, or?
Honestly, I didn't even have those percentages, but I think on average, I was probably saving close to 30 or 40% of my salary. Yeah, easily every month. No.
What?
Yeah,
that's insane. That's amazing, and I think it's so important to. As you were talking, I remember the story of the parable of the Mexican fisherman and the investment banker, and I just pulled it up on my computer because I'm just gonna read it out. It'll take 2 minutes or 1 minute, but it's so it really shaped my decisions, and I think it could shape our listeners' decisions because it's so illuminating. So it goes like this. An American investment banker was taking a much-needed vacation in a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. The boat had several large, fresh fish in it. The investment banker was impressed by the quality of the fish and asked the Mexican how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, only a little while, my friend. The banker then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican replied he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked, but what do you do with the rest of your time? The Mexican fisherman replied, I sleep late, I fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, stroll to the village each evening where I sip wine and tequila and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, señor. The investment banker scoffed, I'm an Ivy League MBA and I could help you. You could spend more time fishing and with the proceeds buy a bigger boat. And with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats until eventually you would have a whole fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to the middlemen, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. You could control the product, processing, and distribution. Then he added, of course, you would need to leave this small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, where you would run your growing enterprise. The Mexican fisherman asked, but senora, how long would this take? To which the American replied, well, 15 to 20 years. But what then, my friend? Asked the Mexican. The American laughed and said, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company stock to the public and become very rich. You could make millions. Millions, senor? And then what? To which the investment banker replied, well, then you would retire. You could move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos. And the Mexican said, I already do that, my friend.
Touche. There you go.
Touche. Boom. Done.
It's like, yeah, we work around all these ways to reach retirement when we're rich and can afford all these luxuries. And then you don't have the time, the desire, or you just never reach that because you end up putting so many anchors and pillars in your life that all of a sudden you moving, it's like, oh, I have to take care of the apartment, the cottage, the cars, the insurance. I cannot go for a month or 3 months to Asia.
The golden handcuffs.
Exactly. And we already have the ability to live such luxurious lifestyles without spending barely any, like, in the context of the world. I also realize, I guess, from all these travels too, how lucky I am, and there's the what I called the luck of birth, that's the lottery of birth. Everybody is subject to it. There's nothing you can do about it. That's where you're born, and then a little bit of your upbringing, but if you've already won the lottery, why are you not enjoying the proceeds, right?
So true.
And so many things. The value-rich life I talk about in one of my short stint communicator videos. But the value-rich life, like, we derive as human beings so much value in things that are so inexpensive. Having a sip of coffee, dinner, the delights of flavors, like just a movie or a book, you spend hours in it, or a video game.
A lot of consumer surplus on these things.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. To me, it was like, when I wake up, I know this is like trillado, it's very cheesy, everybody says it, but literally, when I wake up and I'm 60 or 70 or 80 years old, or 90 or 100, whatever, I don't want to look back and be like, what a fucking waste of a life,
Yeah.
What a waste of talent, resources, opportunities. And if you think about it, when our parents sacrificed a lot so that we could have a life worth living, or the life of our dreams, and pursue our dreams.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we're doing.
They may not express it that way, and my parents are very, very supportive, all the time. But as we've talked, like, usually the comments are like, "What are you doing with your life?" Like, sometimes Mike's like, "Oh, are you still being a vagabond?" The typical family half joke, but in reality, they worked so hard, and they still work so hard, and again, partly because of them, but the lottery has already been won. We're in the top 10 or 5% of the world in terms of what we have access to, and why are you not taking advantage of that?
Yeah.
And you can live a full life being a 9-to-5 corporate job person. Just value your time. Don't push back till you're 65 to do the things that you're dreaming about in your cubicle now.
Don't delay that happiness. Don't delay that satisfaction. And there's many ways to do it now, especially with a remote world.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things.
Exactly.
And I always say that we're so lucky and grateful to have a solid plan B.
Yeah.
Like if comedy or lifestyle entrepreneur didn't go well for us, the worst thing that can happen, the worst, absolute worst, is we have to work at Starbucks.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. How amazing! Or you go back to, you're still an engineer. I'm still I have a Bachelor of Commerce.
Yeah.
I go back to any bank or anything, and
it's
we won the lottery in many ways.
And that's usually like in the worst, and it's not even bad. It's like
amazing.
It's like, okay, yeah, I find another job. Maybe I go down or stay the same on my pay rate that I quit 3 years ago, but that's still amazing. And all the time that I took to give myself this adventure was a hugely rewarding investment, so it puts you at ease to realize that, yeah, you're not going to go starve and die out in, on the street. Like some people do end up there, but the conditions for that to happen are not, following your dreams. Like that fear is overstated in your mind.
Yeah, and you don't have to go, like, it doesn't, like we always say, it doesn't have to be 0 to 100. For example, I quit my bank job almost 5 years ago, and in many ways, I have more responsibilities than I did. I wasn't married, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have kids. Now I'm married, I have a mortgage, I have a son, but at least it's in my terms,
Mm-hmm.
It's in my time, it's in my terms. Luckily I did it when I was 29, and the opportunity cost was lower.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have fixed costs that were so high.
Yeah.
I get it. If you're listening to this and you're a father of 3 or a mother of 3 and they're about to go to college, university soon. They got
mortgage, interest,
mortgage, high school, soccer, hockey,
insurance, cars,
life insurance,
loans, all these. Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of carga cognitiva, and I get it if you can't, but there is a middle ground.
And you have to ask yourself, what kind of life I want to live, and can you plan for it to be ahead of 65? Because it doesn't, like, 65 is just an age that the government picks, and then they can push it forward when because people live longer. So in 10 years it's going to be 70,
75.
Yeah, because all healthy and good to work, and it's not about working or not working, because I guess those lines also in people's minds are very narrow. It's like, just because you're not in an office doesn't mean you're not working. You're creating all this content, you're doing all these things that, because they're not backed by a well-trusted company, doesn't mean they're not worth your time and are good to society.
There's different ways to be productive.
There's different ways to be productive and give back and use your time. So it's not like you're really not working. It's like I tell people, I'm not, even though every time we hang out, every time we're video conferencing, I end up being in a hammock.
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting in a hammock or scratching my balls all day.
So what's your day to day like? Now you're in Villa de Leyva, in a small town in Colombia, beautiful colonial looking town called Villa de Leyva.
Just outside it, in a small country house with lots of green around me.
How many times smaller are your monthly costs than living in downtown Toronto?
Like 3-4 times smaller. Like,
yeah,
2 people can live where I live. Like, I budgeted my expenses and they're around $1,000 a month.
For your side or for both?
For both.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. It's like, okay, then we continue the questions. So if I wasn't here and I got my salary, what would I be doing? And what if my salary was not a full 100% of my salary, but it was 50%? Would I still be able to manage my fixed cost with 50% of my salary? And then you start doing the math and you're like, okay, what's my sweet spot? How much do I need to live? Live well, like not poverty living. Like you're pay your rent, food, entertainment, anything you need. Just you're not having the super high expensive car that you having parked it 90% of the time. You have it parked. No conspicuous consumption, just living a great lifestyle, but with the minimal expenses. And it's not much. I mean, Canada is expensive. I know Toronto is very expensive, but that's where it comes to you to ask yourself, okay, what am I willing to give up? Or what is the right mix for me? Where can I see a less expensive lifestyle, but that gives me the time freedom? And how can I achieve that? Because everybody wants to retire with the $1 million, right? But but do you need the $1 million? How long is it going to take you to save the $1 million? And when you're there, is it going to be enough? So to me, it's a formula: income, expenses. If your income is more than your expenses, then you're great, and you just have to build that income. But the other side of the formula, other than income, that keeps talked about, it's expenses. And if you have low expenses, then a not so big income that you can do maybe part-time can be great towards covering those expenses, giving you a little bit more for peace of mind and saving, and living the lifestyle that you desire. So It's kind of this movement that it's been propping up of early retirement.
Because your environment can dictate so much of your mood, your happiness, your satisfaction, your lifestyle. I mean, just by being in Villa de Leyva or Antigua, Guatemala, or the beach, or Rome, it could really shape almost like your identity in many ways. And you're born in a specific part of the world and once you start making some money, anybody can do the adding and subtracting and be like, I mean, I have this much money, or this could be my expenses. If my fixed expenses are $5,000 in Toronto monthly, what would that cost? In Antigua, Guatemala, or La Fortuna, Costa Rica, or Villa de Leyva? Could it be $700?
Exactly.
And even imagine $700 and you don't want to work, but you can save up $8,400 to live a year there.
Or you can end up looking into passive income investments that give you those $700. So I do have a passive income investment that I did a while ago, and it gives me like 80% of my current monthly expenses.
You're never going back. You're never going back to an office, man.
Not when you put it that way,
That's
like
so good.
I either work a little to make the other 20%, maybe a little extra, but I still have a big runway. Like I have a long runway of liquid assets that give me peace of mind. What
keeps you up at night?
My future self doesn't even keep me up at night. I sleep very soundly, but my future self nags me. Recently, it's been nagging me. It's like, all right, dude, the 1 year became 3 years. Now what? But it's really like, fortunately for me at this stage in my life, and it really depends on what you want in your life, but this stage in my life, I do not have debt, I do not have dependents, and I do not have major responsibilities. So it gives me
the best, man.
It gives me a very easy. It gives me very easy way to sleep.
Free to be, free to act.
Yeah, I don't worry too much about too many things, to be honest. But the one thing that maybe it's like, all right, it's a big decision where to invest my time and effort in some growth, like, professional growth. And I've given myself the freedom to not have to do things only for like the dollar value at the end, but again, going back to the investment of time, I do want to get some back. And if I can get 200 or 300% of my monthly expenses from passive income, I see no need to work.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
I go out and do a bike ride for an hour in the countryside of Villa de Leyva. On the weekends, we get people and like do hikes. Sometimes, cook nice meals, and I work on stuff like for a year and a half, almost for a year and a bit, with Diego, I was working on disruptive consensus, and that took a lot of time. Actually, but it was a very interesting growth experience to go into communication, explore different things, and build skills to edit video and present yourself in front of a camera. So it may seem to people that you're doing nothing when you're just doing videos on YouTube, but that time has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of value, and it's a skill set as well.
So you end up changing your life when you take the salary out of the question significantly, but that doesn't mean that you're a bum, you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a perfect way to end this podcast. I was gonna find a specific quote or something to end it, but that was the perfect way. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Gómez and Stephan Dyer on the Stephan Dyer Podcast.
That's such a great time, buddy.
Ciao, ciao.
Gracias por escuchar el Stephan Dyer Podcast. Arrivederci, my people.